All right, so today our objective is basically three separate things. First things first, this is going to be the first lecture where I really go into detail about the final project and ideas behind it. Then the second part of the lecture will be me doing going over one of those dictionary problems, which I've said is going to be on the of similar type to what's going to be on the exam, which is again the using dictionaries for counting, which is different than what you're doing for the homework, and different what you'll be doing in the last homework, which is pig. And then for the third part, we're going to continue our exploration of scams and Monte Carlo. Okay. Now is the time to start thinking about what you're going to do for your final project. Not to have something decided, but to start thinking about it. April 3rd is what I call proposal day. I will send out emails, but most likely that day, class will be held online via Zoom rather than being in person. It is mandatory, or at least completing it will be mandatory because you cannot do a final project without me approving it first. Okay. The entire point of this is to make sure you're not doing something too difficult or too easy. Generally, it's my concern is the latter, doing something too easy. Now, for the final project, again, let's go ahead and take a look at what we are looking at in my syllabus with regards to the final project. So we'll go into our Canvas page, and we'll see there. And it also has some useful links for you, because you may be thinking to yourself, okay, this sounds stressful because I have no idea what I want to do. Got you covered. Got you covered if you have no idea what you want to do for your final project, okay? You know, because again, it's a lot to kind of figure out what you want to do. And part of the reason we're doing this is, believe it or not, we're pretty much done with the curriculum. All the stuff that's mandatory for you to succeed in 1068, I've already kind of taught. I've already taught that. Only thing that you're missing is kind of making sure you can handle nested arrays, but those are less of a thing in Python. Whereas the thinking is there, but it's less. You don't really use lists of lists in Python in the same way. What we're going to be doing is we're going to go into modules, and let's see, files and. What I was going to do, we've got, I want to just check something. Oof, lost my train of thought, how embarrassing. So we open up Canvas, oh right, the syllabus. So the syllabus has the details for the final project. I skimmed over them on the first day, but now's the time to actually go over them in a bit more detail. Final project has 4 portions. It is worth 10% of your grade, which is a substantial but not devastating or make or break part of it. Okay, the entire point of the final project is that I'm tossing you into the deep end of the pool so that you will actually know, so you actually learn for yourself that you do know how to swim. You've been taught how to swim, and this is just kind of being able to prove it to yourself. It is your chance to learn something new. This is your chance to learn something that you may not actually learn in a programming class, like a game engine or something like that. It is entirely up to you what you want to do, and you can use any programming language. It doesn't need to be in Python. Okay? A lot of you will stick with Python simply because that is the most comforting option to know. You know, it's comfortable to do something that you know. Doesn't have to be Python, though. It could be in any programming language or something even adjacent to programming. You're welcome to utilize it so long as it's something that we would reasonably have access to, and you're not just saying, oh yeah, it's my magic thingamabobber here doing the special thing. And no, I can't show you the code for it because it's super proprietary, right? No, we actually have to see that you did work somehow on something, okay? So in as much as it's that programming is rarely a one-person project or a one-person endeavor, this is an opportunity for you to work with one or two other people. You can form a group of 1, 2, or 3 people total, right? You can do it solo, you can do it as a pair, you can do it as a trio. I am not forcing you to work in a group, okay? You're not being forced to work in a group. It's not mandatory to work in a group. Needless to say, though, we're expecting you to contribute relatively equally, and it's kind of assumed that if you're doing a 2-person project, that you're going to do some more work than you're going to do that basically you're looking at twice or 3 times more work, essentially. Not necessarily, because it's hard to judge that with programming, in my opinion. This text was grabbed from, by the way, the Harvard CS50X course's final project idea. That's where I got it from, and it's honestly worked out brilliantly. You're allowed to talk with other people and get advice for your project, but the 3-person limit is a hard requirement. I have been asked, and I never go over the 3-person limit. Never, ever. If you want a 4th person, guess what you're going to do? You're going to split into 2 groups of 2. It's that simple. Beyond 3 people, there's too much of an effect for one person to simply ride on the other people's coattails. 3 people's kind of the maximum where you can get that. A lot of times, yes, realistically, there might be a person who goes, "Oh, I can do this," and they knock out like a bunch of the project in like a couple, all by themselves in a small time period because they're on a roll. That happens sometimes, but like suddenly you get a lot of people who don't contribute once you get beyond 3 people. 3 people, you can expect everybody is going to be contributing, and you're going to be responsive to each other. There are 4 deliverables, 4 parts to this. The pre-proposal, which we'll be looking at next week, which basically is your brainstorming. It is basically, here's a markdown file. You're going to put that markdown file on GitHub. And just a piece of this, I do not accept my homework. My laptop got destroyed, or somebody sat on it. I don't accept that email as an excuse for not getting the project done. Your code's on GitHub. You're not losing your code. You're putting your code on GitHub. You didn't put it on GitHub? Tough shit. Your code goes on GitHub. You are a programmer. There is no the dog ate my homework in this class ever. Sorry, that is not anger directed at you. That is anger directed at issues from last semester. It is the important thing for GitHub is that basically it is stacking up your stuff on the cloud on steroids. It is the ability to not only see what your latest work is, but also multiple versions of your latest work, as well as having multiple parallel versions of the work that people are independently working on if need be. It also if YouTube makes the same edits, the same thing, it provides the tools you need to resolve any conflicts you might have between different versions of the code that you developed. It is an extremely powerful tool. It is So GitHub's extremely powerful. I plan on going over it on Monday. There's all this wonderful stuff and super difficult stuff with command line. I'm not going to bother going into the command line about it. I'm just going to show you how to make a project as easy as possible and why that's a good thing. I even have a project that I've set up on GitHub that's kind of an example project that I did over spring break for that. But anyway, pre-polls, but basically this entire point is learning how to use GitHub and kind of identifying who you might want to work with and kind of getting ideas of what you want to work on. The proposal is, what are you going to do? This is where you turn it in and get approval from me on your ideas. I have a sheet of paper that I jotted down basically the ideas that are swimming through my head, those general categories of what we can do for your final project. And the entire lecture will be dedicated for me just going through and making sure that I get to everybody. And if I don't get to you, please reach out, because I will meet you on Zoom basically all day that day to make sure that I give approval for this. Don't just simply ghost me. If for some reason you have to leave in the middle of it and you can't get back, you gotta speak to me. It's a painful thing. This is not meant to be a hard thing. This is just, I'm just trying to prevent as much pain and stress as possible here. Progress report. What have you done, and do you need to adjust your expectations? This is turned in like a week before the due date. And then the final project is your project, a video walkthrough, and a README file. It is basically the last thing. The final project is due, I believe, on the 28th, or whatever the last day of classes are, the day that classes officially end before the study day, okay? That is when it's due. This is the one thing I'm super strict on. You've seen that I'm very laid back and very lax about turning in late work and all that stuff. This is the one thing I am extremely strict with. There are no extensions for this, barring like a literal medical emergency. Right? That you literally, something has prevented you from literally going to your computer and clicking buttons, right? Okay. Technical issues are again less of a thing because your project's on GitHub. You can just go to any other computer and get that to me very straightforward to me. And you can explain to me, hey, I had technical issues, and I'll take that into account. But like, it's meant to be turned on. So anyway, it must be uploaded to GitHub, as I'll go over later. Failure to like get something to me will give you a temporary 0. There's quite a few of those that happen every semester of temporary 0, where you didn't upload a video file or you forgot to give me the GitHub link. That's easily resolved by you being alerted that you got a 0, because giving you a 0, you better believe that gets your attention very quickly, and then you just simply fix it and I give you the grade that you actually deserve. Okay, very straightforward there. Okay, so furthermore, if you do not have the proposal turned in by the time the progress report, so right, remember how I said April 3rd, that is our proposal day, right? And you're supposed to turn in your proposal, meet with me. If you do not get approval for your final project by the time the progress report is due, which is like a week before, then then you will get an instant 0 on this project, just because every single time that I have been lenient about that, I have been sorely disappointed, extremely disappointed in the results. And about half of those time, it ends up me having to write down an academic dishonesty charge against the student because they decide to plagiarize. A lot of students assume just because they get their code from a website that's in a foreign language that I won't be able to track it down myself. I do. All right, and this is what I was saying about being strict about the due date. The final project's due date is hard. There is a late penalty for it. It is a 1/10 of a point every minute that it's late. So an hour late is 6 points off, which is still, by the way, easy enough to get an A on that, right? Or even a B, depending on if your base points are a 90. Just the idea here is turn in what you have, please, right? Okay, and again, the due date is not alterable because I have to go and because depending on when the final exam is, I have to go through these things very quickly to make sure I find so I can choose the best final projects. And again, what's the incentive there? This is something where, again, I've just said a bunch of intimidating things, how you instantly get a 0. Don't take that as to something to be nervous about, because this is a genuine, you get an A, a 90, for effort here. If you showed me that you actually tried to learn something and you have a deliverable, it's an A. It's a 90. The best final projects, the ones that are truly, really good, those get to skip, those groups get to skip the final exam. Okay? So I'm far more interested in the journey than the destination. It's a learning experience, not a tech startup. Okay? This is a this is meant to be something fun, even though I just went through all those scary things. But the main reason is I want to get those on video, because the vast majority of the classes, like I'd say 95% of everybody, of all the students, do awesome jobs on this. The worst score I given for a student who legitimately tried, even at the last minute, was like, and I say legitimately tried, was like a C on the final project. Okay, that's the worst I've given for like a student who's like, it's very obvious you tried this on the last minute, but at least you tried. As opposed to students who like, they're like, I didn't reach out until the very end, and you know, it's just a problem. Yes?
I have a question. I'm sorry, I drew a blank, but you said, so the person, is it various students who do like an outstanding job, they get to skip the final, or is it just one person or one group?
I generally choose one or more, generally more projects from each section. I make sure that, and it's not and generally speaking, I don't try to constrain it to the number of people. Around 15% of the people, and around 15% of the class was 15% of the class one semester, 11% of the class one semester that ended up skipping the final. So I don't have a hard limit. Sometimes y'all make it extremely difficult for me to choose. Yes?
If you end up skipping the final, like if you end up being qualified to skip the final, is it still in your best interest to take it so that way you can like not go on your order?
You'll be able to see what your grade is without it. Your current grade would be, without your grade as it currently stands, is your grade without the final exam.
Oh, okay.
So you might be, so, you know, what happens is I just simply mark you as excused on it. And yeah, and you're more than welcome to take it. You just don't need to. It's, some students it may be in your interest to. Other students you might be like, well, I could get an A, but I've got to solve B. And I honestly want to focus on getting everything else. So, you know, you can make that calculus. So one other thing I should mention is that double dipping is not only allowed, is encouraged. Generally speaking, it is it is considered an academic dishonesty and actionable academic dishonesty thing if you take something you did, like an essay you did for Class A, and turn it in for Class B without any kind of alteration or notification to the professor, right? And that the second one being the more important thing, because it's not unique work that you've done. It's here though, I'm actually encouraging it with the caveat that you just talk to the other professor and you both know what's going on. Basically, here's how it works. You talk to them, you talk to me, and then we both give you our independent okay, and then you send us an email, same email to us, basically both of us listed, saying, hey, just to confirm I talked to you two, and here's an email basically so you know that the other person knows. Right. This is generally for students who have basically research going on, or seniors or juniors, pretty much. All right. So, what should I do if the work isn't done? Turn in what you have. I want to do Hangman. Hangman is not a good final project, right? Just simply doing Hangman. That's a basic computer science homework that's often done. Now, sorry, and the reason that I have this is because very first time I did this final project, I had a student not turn in any part of the project, and then he asked me to let him turn in something late, and I asked him to show me what he had. It was just Hangman, and he had plagiarized that, and he had plagiarized it poorly, and so that single student is pretty much the reason that every auto-fail condition is in this, because it was just such a teeth-pullingly bad experience where it was denial on the cheating. It was very obvious that the cheating had happened. Okay. So anyway, what can you do for your final project? So first off, if you have no idea here what to do for the final project, I do have some videos. One batch of which is probably a bit out of date because mobile programming evolves fairly quickly, but that's what these Module 10 tracks are. They're not actually homeworks. I used to have them as set up as kind of extra credit things, but now they're just simply starter ideas for final projects. If you are unsure what to do for a final project, there's 3 general broad categories you could try. The games category goes through how to build Pong in the 2D engine Lua with love for Lua. If you've played Balatro, that game is made in the Love engine. Okay, so but here's like videos of walkthroughs of how to build the entire thing, as well as how to take that and then build a 2D side scroller like Mario in Lua. It's a very and Lua's actually an engine that people actually, as I've just pointed out, people make actual games that are, worthwhile in Lua. Pygame, less so. Pygame is what you want to use if you're making a game in Python, but I don't really know of any like high-end games or well-selling games that were made in Pygame, really. I just don't think the structure is there to help you do what you want easily in that. But here's the tutorials of how to do this. You can basically make your own version of Pong with a twist. One example that I wish I still had, but I don't know where the code for it is anymore, is that I made a version of Pong where basically as it was to 10 points, and as you beat the computer, suddenly the computer's paddle subtly got longer and longer until it was very obvious by the time you got to 8 points. At which point the game's title would change to Unfair Pong at 8 points, and then every time it would get the ball, it would hit it back to you at quadruple speed. So that was my twist on Pong. Basically, I made a fun twist on it. So making a classic game reproducing your classic game like Tetris or Snake or something like that, those are all kind of good ideas. Especially if you make it your own in some way, like giving power-ups, like the ability in Snake for you to like blow up part of your tail so it's no longer there, or something like that, or for you to basically jump over your own tail so you don't hit it, right? Ideas like that are pretty good. So making a game your own like that. I will go back to games because that is actually probably our biggest category and my biggest suggestion for you. So web projects, those are awesome. There's tutorials here how to take you from knowing nothing about how doing web pages, and this is a very common thing students do, which is you build your own personal web page. Okay, making your own personal web page, or maybe it's a virtual storefront or a fake storefront, because obviously you probably don't want to actually do some commerce. That would be a bit difficult, but making some kind of homepage, making a fan page for your favorite video game or something like that, making a page that serves as a resume or a portfolio. Those are all good ideas. And again, these videos take you through how to do these all. If you want to do something a bit more exciting, right, you can try, as I refer to it, their Stonks project, which is a virtual, they call it their finance page, but it is a fake web trading page. It works off of real data, but you're making fake trades. Okay, that's the idea here. So you can see how well you'd see how much money you would lose trying to play the stock market. You would lose lots of money is the answer. But building a web page is a great idea, and it goes through like a whole lot of things. You may end up with something that does not look very impressive on the front end, but on the back end, it's using like a framework like the Django or Flask, and I know the amount of work that goes into it. Last semester, the best web page project was a D&D 5th edition character generator or point buy system, and it was just a very well designed minimalistic site. It did what it needed to do. It took into account common issues, and it did things like resize the page properly. It was very good. Okay. So on the other end of things, especially for the iOS, the ideas here are out of date, but Android should still be good. But you can follow a tutorial on there's tons of YouTube tutorials out there for making apps, making basically your own kind of Instagram thing Instagram initially was like a big filter app, right? That was take photos, apply filters. It's turned into its own social media thing, as you well know. But the idea here of basically still being able to take photos and apply filters, that's a totally doable thing in the time frame we're talking about. Making it's got a idea of how to make a Pokédex kind of here, but making a mobile app, some kind of game or something else, making just a note-taking app, making a photo editing app. Those are all fun ideas. Okay. If you are music or art inclined, right, you can try messing around with making a music plugin. If you're into art, if you use Blender at all, Python is used to make those a lot of plugins for Blender. They go hand in hand. They are Blender and Python are very, very, very powerful tools to use together. If you are interested in doing hardware-based stuff, maybe making a little robot, that's actually affordable. In the less than $100 range, I should clarify what affordable is. Typically, you need something like a Raspberry Pi or Arduino, but doing something like that, making a tiny little bot or tiny little hardware thing is a good project. One of my favorite project ideas that I love to show every semester is a Raspberry Pi, which is this credit card sized computer. It's very tiny, and then a laser tripwire. This was a very good idea. So this is like a project, and it walks you, like Raspberry Pi has a ton of projects on their page of all sorts of things you can do with this tiny credit card sized computer. And this is it goes through on how to detect a broken beam and how he built it. But here's the video. Let me go ahead and turn it down because it will be loud. Okay.
The laser pointer gaffer taped to the skirting board, and if we look over here, I've got my Raspberry Pi sitting in its box with the straw sticking out there and the laser pointer shining into that. If you want to make sure that the laser's there, what we can do is we can turn the lights off, and then we can blow a little bit of flour.
Right.
We can just about see the laser. There we go. We can turn the lights back on now, and then we can get some unsuspecting person to walk through the laser and set it off.
This would be a great final project. I don't know why why did the video change? It used to have a dog in it. There was a dog, and the rest of the video has a dog go through it. But why not have? Yeah, you could totally have this send an alert of some kind to your phone or a message of some kind, right? And that would be an excellent final project. One final project that was a hardware-based one a couple semesters ago was when Among Us had just really kind of had just come out, and he basically he made a real emergency meeting button that, when hit, would send out a Discord message to all the to specific contacts. So hit it, immediate emergency meeting sent to all the Discord contacts. It was great idea. I think it took him about 20 lines of code maybe. But it was very effective 20 lines of code that made use of making sure you understood the frameworks. Speaking of Discord, making a Discord bot is a very common project that I've seen grow in popularity over the past couple years. Music bots, using a fake chat bot. Like there was one person who had took like an artist and they, a music artist, and took a lot of what they've said, threw it into an AI to ask for it to generate more plausible lines from this person, and so it would be fake quotes from this music artist. So another common idea is like for people is like creating some kind of tracker for medical purposes, like tracking your calories, tracking medicine and stuff like that. So that those generally require a bit more of an idea, but those kind of things are but making something that you would find personally useful in your life, like actually legitimately useful for like making sure, okay, medication has this half-life range, so I can graph out when I would want to take it for my doses to be effective. Those kind of things are very useful. Or keeping track of my insulin levels, right, and graphing that out. That could be useful, right? So games. Okay, very few games are made in Pygame for Python. However, there is a different engine that's great for making a certain type of games. And I'm, of course, talking about RenPy. Or RenPy. It is a visual novel engine. Visual novels are basically, let's say, computerized choose-your-own-adventure games. Typically, there's a lot of establishment with the romance genre, but honestly, they've expanded quite far afield. Two of my favorite games that have come out in recent years were made in RenPy, which again are just simply you take picture you basically do pictures associated with text, and then you basically make choices with them. One of them is Doki Doki Literature Club. And for those of you who are smiling, you know the joke about this game and why it is possibly my favorite game. It looks like this cute dating simulator game. But if you check Steam, the tags for it are psychological horror. So it is actually an amazing game. It is fantastic. It is about 2 hours worth of playthrough for just kind of 2 to 3 hours, I'd say. It's worth it. It's completely free, and it's fantastic. Do not play if you're easily disturbed. I'm serious about that. Like, do not play if things like self-harm are like extremely triggering to you. Do not. This game is amazing. But the other game that I believe was written in RenPy recently was and this has been one of my favorites, definitely of last year, was Slay the Princess, which is definitely a horror visual novel. Which the premise is very simple. You need to slay the princess. If you don't, it will be the end of the world. No, I will not elaborate further, says the narrator. It is very good, very, very good. Again, definitely a lot of adult kind of themes there in terms of violence. Yes?
Random question. Have you played Yuki and Her?
I've heard that one, and I've not had the chance to play it, but I understand. But I know what the premise is about that one, and I know exactly why you're bringing that one up. Okay, I know exactly why. If you enjoyed that one, if you enjoyed Doki Doki Literature Club, that would definitely be a game that was up your alley. Now but basically making a visual novel, there's almost always multiple visual novels or games made, I should say games made in RenPy that make best project. Games like this, and so why do games like this end up in the best project? Because the students who end up in the best project do one of two things. One, the person or group makes the game and all of the assets by themselves. What are assets? I'm talking about making all the sounds, making all the music, and making all the graphics by themselves. Those can be poorly hand-drawn stuff. It doesn't matter how good or bad your art or music is, just making it. The act of making it is that's incredible because you're making the whole package by yourself. Okay, that's one thing. Another thing that is another thing that gets best project oftentimes for visual novels is when students manage to incorporate other stuff in Python into there, like making games within games. Like I remember one a couple years ago that students did a drag and drop game inside of it. So they programmed in a drag and drop puzzle into their game. Blew me away that they were able to do that. Okay. Okay. So, but in general, this is a way, if you are less confident in coding, this is a great, RenPy is great because it allows you to focus on more of the creative aspects of making a game. Okay? Now, if you're willing to step outside of Python though, they are great things that are there. One of them is Pico 8, which is, if you like retro gaming, there's Pico 8, which is a fake retro console. It has very limited programming capabilities. They're deliberately chosen. The games literally fit into these PNGs, which is why they're called carts for them. But you can do little, you can do little smooth looking games like these. Everything is in Pico 8, like the sprite editor, the level editing, the music tracker is in there, and it's a great kind of a source for that. If you're interested in all this stuff, I suggest Pirate Software's. He has a website. He's a game streamer. Let's see. Pirate Software, is it this one or Pirate Software make games? Yeah, so he has a specific one for where is it? Develop.games. Yeah, develop.games. So it's kind of ideas of what you need to make games. And the answer is you don't really need any skills to kind of get started with this. Having the programming really helps. If you suck at art, don't worry. Here's an amazing game that was made just with cubes. That's it. Amazing game. Simplistic pixel art. West of Loathing, stick art. Right? Musician, Hidden Folks, everything is mouth sounds. Basically, all the sounds that are made with the mouth. Basically, somebody's face. Okay? Undertale, you don't have to be an amazing programmer. Undertale is one of the best games I've ever played. Love it. Fantastic game. This is very polite. Toby Fox was a much more novice programmer at the time, and the code base has some incredibly odd choices throughout it. Yeah, that is a very polite way to frame it. He's definitely learned a lot more. But, you don't have to be an amazing programmer to make a great game. You can make a game, and you learn as you go, and you learn from your previous games. Okay? You can make all sorts of games, but there is no best engine. Mentioned Doki Doki Literature Club in Ren'Py. Risk of Rain was made in GameMaker and MS Paint. Godot is a great engine because it's free and open source. Okay? Great amount of tutorials. GameMaker's good for making games. Unreal Engine is pretty good for making games. Unity is pretty good for making games. A lot of these companies, Unreal and Unity being the big 3D engines, they want you to make their games in their engine, and they have very, very good terms for basically students because they want you, when you're actually trying to make a game for money, to actually make a game using their engine. Ren'Py is great for those. As for making art with it, all sorts of things you can use to making art. This reminds me, Fami Studio for making NES chiptunes, but also there's things like, if you're really into retro games, GB Studio. You can tell I'm a bit passionate about games, perhaps, is a way to make... It's a way to make old Game Boy games, and throw them into emulators. It's great. These things are fantastic, okay? There's all sorts of ideas here. And again, this is your chance to be creative because you're making a game for fun. You're not trying to do it for money. You're doing it for the opportunity to learn. And it's very hard to get that opportunity when you're out of school. Again, I get a lot of projects in Unity, Unreal Engine, just simply because that gives you the chance to learn, okay? So, it's great. I get a lot of Flappy Bird clones. That's perfectly fine. But again, the ones that hit Best Project are the games that you really make it your own in some way, right? You remix the game in some incredible way. Or not even necessarily incredible. Could be just clever or unique, okay? If you're interested in using Pygame, Pygame can be found, let's see. So there's this website, Automate the Boring Stuff. I've linked to it in my syllabus. This author will be using this textbook as for regular expressions in a few weeks. It's completely free. Invent your own games with Python down here. Let's see, is this Python? Nope, not that one. Making games with Python and Pygame. This goes through how to install Pygame, which is very important because you need to learn how to use something called pip. You got to install Pygame. You got to install it somehow. You've got to, let's see, yeah. But you want to do something called pip, and you need to use some software tool called pip to install a library that doesn't come pre-installed with Python. If you don't know how to do that, just reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you. It's like literally, it's either a 30-second thing or a 5-second thing, depending on how you installed Python on your computer during your first day of class. Okay. So, so yeah. I am. Yeah, so yeah, that's what's going on there. So hopefully you can get some ideas. And again, if you don't have an idea, if you come to me, yes. It does not have to be a game, but there is for some reason, programming just attracts people who enjoy making video games or enjoy playing video games. So that's why I spend a lot of time on it. But no, it does not have to be. In fact, the vast majority of the final projects are just, they don't fall into any specific category. Their games are very nice ways to kind of, they're a great way to show what you know how to do to friends and family, though. So they can be visually impressive. It is very rare, I should mention lastly, that students use Turtle on the final project in a way that makes sense. The one thing that did use Turtle and that got a final project was like taking an image and using Turtle to draw the way you would want to thread through a loom, like one of those round. I'm not a tailor of any kind or a crafter of any kind, but basically how you would specifically thread it to turn into an image that you would want to sew. So and that kind of geometric thing made a lot of sense for Turtles. So it does not have to be that impressive. If you come to me with the idea, so if you come to me with no idea, I will direct you to an idea So show up anyway, even if you don't have an idea. I will help you find an idea then and there. Okay? If you come to me and say something like tic-tac-toe, I will show you how to actually do something that's better than tic-tac-toe. Again, a basic idea. Often one of the games I suggest instead of tic-tac-toe is a game called Goblet Gobblers. Implementing this game instead, which is, again, made for... it's made for children. Goblet Gobblers. It's tic-tac-toes, except you have 6 pieces, and bigger pieces can cover up smaller pieces, and you can move them, and you can occasionally move them around. So So there's actually a level of strategic depth in there that you don't get from tic-tac-toe. It's actually fun because the kids now actually stand a chance. Anyway, so yeah, things like Hangman or Wordle, if you want to implement them, I have I have suggestions about why not make a version of Hangman that cheats, right? That's a fun one. We do that in 2168. It's a lot of fun. Okay. So, okay. I think I've droned on for enough time, so I'm going to transition into programming. Okay. Yes, definitely have droned on for like half the class. All right. So, talking about programming, and don't worry, if we don't get to the stuff, I'm going to definitely get to it next lecture, because I just do want to make sure I spend plenty of time on this. A common problem I often ask is something along the lines of, what is the give me a count of how often each word occurs in a string, right? Given a string that's text, give me how often that each word occurs. Or given some string, tell me how often each letter occurs. Or given a list of numbers, tell me how often each number occurs. In other words, give me a count of something, right? Let's go ahead and look at that idea, word counting, okay? So let's suppose I have I've got a file here. You don't need to download it because I'm going to be making this a function, and you can test it off of any text, right? So I'm going to just call this def do count, or I'm going to call it word count, and text. This is the important part that I want you to write down. What I'm about to do for doing, and I'm just going to put a pass right here. What I'm going to do for everything else outside of here, which is getting the input text, don't worry about it. I'm just using this to get stuff. Like this function over here, def get Hamlet. So here I'm going to grab some text for us to use. So I'm going to give it the file path to my copy of Hamlet. So I'm going to read it. And right, I downloaded this from Project Gutenberg if you want to recreate this later. But again, this is the important part. You can do this with any text, but I just wanted to do it with something that had a lot of text, and Hamlet has 202 kilobytes of text. So file is equal to, or let's say text is equal to open Hamlet.txt read mode, and then .read that. Let's split it up into multiple lines, actually. Data. Text is equal to data.read. Because I'm not going to bother going line through line for this. I probably will. I'm going to go ahead and do read lines. Return. Return text. And let's go ahead and just simply do get Hamlet. And I believe that should be in, oh, right. I don't need to do this. I should, see, this is the issue with when you talk and type. I should put file path here in case I need to modify it. Hamlet.txt, right? This is not the part you should be writing down because you don't have Hamlet on your computer, ostensibly. Carmap, right, and this, okay, so I found it, can't read it because it's from Project Gutenberg, and the files from Project Gutenberg need encoding equals UTF-8, right, that magic phrase that I say that you don't need to know for the exam or anything like that. This is just for the files you get from Project Gutenberg. Great, works. I know it works because it did nothing. If I needed to, I can print it out. We can see that it has the play. I'll give thee a play unto a dowry. Hamlet, right. So we've got all this stuff. Okay. Now let's go ahead and actually get a word count going on here. Okay. How often each string occurs. Okay. Now, so let's see. So we've got this text here, and we want to count how often each word occurs here. So count is equal to an empty string, empty dictionary. Because what we're going to do is that we need to, in order to count every word, we can't have a variable to say the number of times we've seen the word the number of times we've seen the word and, the number of times I've seen the word Hamlet, the number of times, right? I'd be making about a couple million variables, right? That'd take too long. And I don't know what words are actually going to be in Hamlet. Not only that, authors are sometimes obnoxious and they make up all new fake words for their fantasy universe because they can't just use the word magic. They got to say, no, my magic is about metal, so it's called allomancy. So... I see like a couple people got that reference, and I'm happy about that. So
I have a question. This has nothing to do with text, but like, have you ever seen like a book that's just completely written in a made-up language?
a what? A book that's written in a made-up language? There's a couple one of those, I believe.
How hard is it?
I have no idea. I don't know how to date.
Recommend this program.
For made up language, honestly, that's probably pretty tricky for that because it depends on how it's encoded. If it's not in something we can encode, then it would be difficult. But if you can encode it into English or Latin characters, then sure, they would work the same way. So count. So we create this over here because what we're going to do is we're going to store is because dictionaries are useful for storing pairs of values, keys and values. So we say that the key is going to be the word, right? That's going to be our key. And the thing that is going to be associated with that is how many times I've seen that key. So in other words, it's going to be able to store, here's the word, and here's how many times I've seen it. Right now it's empty because we haven't seen any words yet, because we haven't read the file. So let's go ahead and we've read the file, and now we actually have to go and parse through it. So for line in text, right? Now let's just go ahead and print this out to look at it, right? And I'll go ahead and call, so get Hamlet gives me the text. Okay. And then I will do that, and I'll say, hey, count is equal to word count text. And when you're testing it on your own computer, what you would do is just make your text something other than get Hamlet. It would be like you could have a very long test string, or you could copy and paste some text in there just to get it to try to work. But count is equal to word count text. And let's go ahead and that count is what I'll return. I'll leave it for my later job to analyze that or to sort it out or figure out how to parse through it. Not my job right now. And in the exam, it's not going to be your job to parse through it. I just want the count, how often every single word occurs. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and run this. And we see that we go. Now, on the exam, I'm going to have some stipulations on the exam that will make it easier for you. Specifically, on the exam, I'll say things like, ignore punctuation, right? Which suddenly makes having to go through that a bit easier, okay? Because we'll have to, as you'll see, we'll add some more lines to handle that. But for right now, I'm going to operate under the assumption that we could ignore punctuation. So for line in text, we now are going through every line. Now, every line is made up of words, and words are what we want to analyze. So how do I tell where one word begins and one ends? In English, how do we do that? Space, not a trick question. Words are separated by spaces in English, right? So that makes it nice for us in English to be able to tell how these things apart. Okay, so we need to take up this line. So we can get each of these words if we just simply say, hey, the words in the line are separated by spaces. Like that. Print words. And so over here, we can scroll up and we can see, hey, we shall obey, were she 10 times our mother, have you any further? And we can see here that basically obey has a comma attached to it. Again, we're going to ignore these punctuations and stuff like that. What is annoying is going to be these slash ends, right? Some of these have beginning and trailing white space over here. So we're just going to get rid of that. But we'll do that as we go through it. So now we have a list. For each line, we turn that into a list of words. Make sense? This is what this does. It turns each line into a list of words by separating it by spaces. Then what do? We go through and we say for word in words, right? So we need another for loop to go through each of those individual words because we want to go through them individually. And this is the big part and this is the most important part over here of the entire process, right? It is, we say, hey, if word in count, or we say not in count. I like to start with not in count. If the word is not in our count, that means we haven't seen it before. Make sense? So we say the count of that word is equal to 1. Make sense to everybody? Right? This part, hopefully you've seen this before in some way, right? You should have seen this before. I'm pretty sure I've done this previously, where we go through a line of text and then we can break that text up and go word by word. Okay? Then this is the dictionary part I went over last Tuesday, I believe, or last Thursday, which is if word not in count, then if we've not seen this word, right, if this word is not in there as a key, then I put it in there as a key and say the value associated with it is 1. Basically, I'm saying, hey, we've seen this thing once now. So if it's not in count, do this. The other possibility is that it is, right? It's either in there or it's not. So if it is in there, well, I've seen it one more time, so I'm going to say the count, I've seen it one more time. I increase the amount of times I've seen it by 1. And that's it. This is pretty much everything you would need on the exam. Let's see. For word in words. Right? 1 second. This is all I would need on the exam. Not this. Just this would be what I'd be asking for on an exam typically. It might be something more along the lines of, hey, here's some text. What is the most common letter in the text, right? What is the most common or give me a count of each of the characters. But for here, but you can see that would be kind of the same idea over here. You just kind of be iterating over it slightly differently. All right, so now we're going to go and actually go through the idea of refining this. And if this takes the rest of the lecture, then and we don't get to the scam games until next week, so be it. So we go through this. First off, this is like messy. Gutenberg's TM. Ugh, what is that? Oh, and then we have all these all capped words as well, right? General, capital G general. In fact, I'm sure a lot of words should show up more, should have a higher count because capitalized versus not capitalized. So we'll do this. We're going to spend this space over here cleaning this up. First thing we can do is we can say word is equal to word dot lower to change it all to lowercase. Now it's all lowercase, so there's no difference between the uppercase and lower cases. The next thing I need to do is get rid of all of these /n's at the end. We can get rid of stuff if we've got a string and it's surrounded by things I don't like. We can use something called strip to strip away the ends. One way we can use it is like this. Word is equal to word dot strip, and that strips away all the white space around it. So here we go. Let me go ahead and show you in idle for a second. So if I say S is equal to I like to eat tacos. I think they are tasty. And then I have put so I have a bunch of spaces here at the beginning and the end, plus I have a bunch of spaces all over the place. If I do s.strip, that will create a new string. And look at the new string. It got rid of all that white space at the beginning or the end. So very useful there. So when we say, so we create a new string that's lowercase, then we take that string and create a new string that is stripped of all that white space, so none of those weird /n's. And we can also now work on other kind of things, like, let's say we could strip away punctuation. Word is equal to word dot strip. And then let's see. Interesting. Strip, and we can do, I forget if it takes one character multiples. I can do something like this. Oh, is it regex? I hope it's not regex. We're going to find out if it was regex. Not regex. So this gets rid of all the periods. We'll just get rid of... I'm just seeing if this does what I think it does. All right. We'll find out very quickly by just simply doing a colon as well and seeing if facility is gone. Okay, great. That colon is gone from facility. So I'm just going to list all the characters I want to strip out, which are this one and let's say the quotation symbol. And now if I run it, it suddenly becomes a whole lot cleaner. There's still some stuff in here that's weird, but for the most part, we can actually go through and kind of get an idea of the most common characters. Like here, this is the first line of it, by the way. That's just a weird, this is the reason we get our error here. I think this is just a beginning of file character. Anyway. But we see that this occurs 325 times, the occurs 1292, and so we could ostensibly iterate over this file and figure out, hey, what is the most common word? We could iterate through it, but where's the fun in that? Let's go ahead and so we can do a couple of fun things over here. There's a couple of fun functions that are built into Python, like sorted. Sorted is great. And here's all sorted. What it does is that given a list, it goes through the list and sorts it. So it took all the keys and sorted it in alphabetical order. But we want it not sorted in alphabetical order. We want to sort it by the value. And I think it's key is equal to, how do I do it? Count dot. Is this how I do it? I always forget. Expected at least one argument. Okay. Let's see. I always have to look this up because I literally look it up just once here. How to sort dictionary Python by value. And I believe, right, it is just simply, lambda. Is that how I have to do it with the lambda? I don't want to have to talk about lambdas. Is there not a way to do it without lambda? Really? I don't want to do it with lambda, though. I don't want to hit you with the forbidden knowledge. Lambda tends to break a few students' brains. Yeah, so lambda tends to break sorted by value. Oh, there it is. Okay, that was, I almost had it. There we go. And this is saying sort on the, so here, this says sort them now instead of going by alphabetical order, by the keys and doing the keys naturally. This is saying, hey, sort them by using whatever the value would be. And it's going to sort them from least to greatest. So we can see our most common words here are the empty string, where that makes sense, that those are basically our empty lines, and we have a lot of them. So we should probably remove that. But we have the, and, to, of, you, I, my, in, Hamlet. It makes sense that Hamlet would occur a lot in the play Hamlet, right? So there's a way to, so that's how you can go through these things. And we can even iterate over this. In fact, here's what I can do. I can show you what the top 10 most common words are by using sorted. And I'm going to use one more default argument, reversed. Reversed, is it reversed? Yeah, reverse equals true. Okay, let's just print to make sure that that works. I believe that is the key. I'm working off of memory, and I'm always... Newsletter, least common word. There we go. Does work. And then finally, let's go ahead and just simply say if word blend of word equal 0, or let's say greater than 0, we'll indent these so we don't get any empties. There we go. And there we go. Now we can do this. For word in, and we are just going to go and get, say, the first 10 of these. Yep. Because this turns into a list. Print word and count word. I believe this is how I do it, and then I'm going to clean it up to make that a bit easier to read because I did one of the things I hate doing. And that is a reason wait, where's the unmatched parentheses? Oh, yeah. That's the unmatched parentheses. There. Boom. There we go. There's our top 10 words. So what we can do over here is we can say this is equal to our words. They're sorted here. Okay. Take the top 10 of those words for our top 10 for word in top 10. Print out the word, and then get the value associated with that word. The sorted function is something worth looking up, but you don't need to know for our exams. But it's a very useful little tool that did a lot of work for me, just like that. It's very useful. All right. So we have about 12 minutes left. Rather than dismissing early, I do want to introduce the problem so you can think about it over your weekend. Fun kind of game problem. Okay, so I'm gonna go over my scam game here. Okay, very straightforward kind of way. And then we will write the program to solve this next week. So this is the gambling makes it fun. Okay, so suppose I have I have 7 cards. Okay, doesn't matter what the cards are, right? But these are standard playing cards. I take them from the deck. Doesn't matter. But there's 2 red cards. Okay, and there's going to be 5 black cards. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And here's the game. Even money on it, so let's say we bet $1 or $100 or $50 or however much money you want to lose. Okay? So, but here's the game. I'm going to flip all these cards over so that neither of us, and shuffle it around. So that, or you can shuffle them around. So that neither of us knows which card is which, right? So we are going to have, we're going to have 7 face down cards that we can't tell which is which. Okay, we had 5 of them are black, 2 of them are red. Your goal is to flip and you win the game if you can flip over 3 cards and none of them are red. So flip over 3 black cards and you win. But if you flip over a red card, I win. Okay? And I mean, honestly, let's just think about this for a second, okay? Let's think of the trick over this relies on math, doesn't rely on me doing any manipulation with the cards or playing around with it or cheating you out that way. Let's just kind of think about this for a second. Okay? There's 2 red, 5 black cards. So if you flip over your first card, your chances of getting a a black card, getting it right, is 5 out of 7, right? More than 50% chance. Greater than 50% chance there. Then you've got we've got 6 cards left. 4 black, 2 red. So 4 out of 6 of the cards left. Also a greater than 50% chance to flip over a black card. And then for your third flip, well, there's 5 cards left. 3 of those cards are black. So you've got a greater than 50% chance there for your 5th card to be you've got a 60% chance for that card to be a black card. All those chances are greater than nothing I said there was a lie. All of these, all of those chances are greater than 50%. Your overall chances of winning, obviously, then are greater than 50, or must got to be somewhere around 50%. And that's a lie, because that's not the way that conditional probability works. So when you go and study statistics, you'll learn that this kind of situation is called something called conditional probability, where basically each step depends, we can evaluate each step independently like this, but the overall success is conditional on multiple things occurring. And when that occurs, we multiply. So your overall odds are actually this. Okay? Like I said, we'd save this for over the break, but we'll do this. We'll do the actual and I'll give you the chance to play it yourself over the weekend, and then we'll come back on Tuesday to code it. But this is your overall chances. Let's do some quick math, shall we? So your overall chances of winning this game, which I posited would be a fair game, it's 5 times 4 times 3. So 5 times 4 is 20, times 3 is 60, over 7 times 6 times 5. 6 times 5 is 30. I'm just doing this in my head. 6 times 5 is 30. 7 times 30 is 21. Is 210, right? Make sense? I've done the math, right? Right? That math is correct. Now let's simplify. 60 out of 210 are your chances. Let's simplify. Okay? Get rid of those zeros, right? Because they're both multiples of 10. And these are both multiples of 3, so we can knock out a 3. So divide this by 3. We get 2. And divide this by 3. So our overall chances would be 2 out of 7. Those are your chances of winning. Incidentally, that's like the number of that's the number of red cards there are, incidentally. So yeah, very low chances of winning this game. But what if you don't know conditional probability? Then we need to code this up, right? This is the entire point about doing this. Math, if you don't know it and think about the logic, like the law of probability stuff to get the probabilities correctly, you have to think about it and know about these probabilities. You have to know the rules. Okay. The other problem, which I'll go over, and I'm not going to do the answer for this one, okay, is, okay, you didn't like that one. Okay, instead, let's do 7 black cards and 2 red cards. And we're going to line them up, and we're going to do it like like one of those instant lottery ticket things. We're going to line them up, shuffle them around, face down. It might end up in a configuration that looks like this, right? Might end up in a configuration that looks like this, where it's a 3x3 grid. Got it? So we're going to take it, shuffle them up in a 3x3 grid, and we're going to do it like an instant lottery that you can just buy at like a gas station, which is to say that if you can get 3 symbols in a row, if you can get 3 black cards in a row without flipping over a without flipping over a red card, you win. If you flip over a red card, I win, right? So, for instance, if you did these, you'd win. If you flipped over these 3, you'd win. This way, you'd win. If you did this, you'd lose. You did this. You get the idea, right? I mean, there's only 2 black cards in there, so how bad can your chances be? So we'll find out, in fact, how bad your chances will be on Tuesday. But these are the kind of games that I really enjoy going over for the sake of our of doing of Monte Carlo. The entire point is that we can use their programming and to try to get to this. To solve these annoyingly complicated math problems where probabilities are involved. All right, and with that, 5 minutes left. I think I'll call it. See you later.